Okay, maybe I'll start now. And you've noticed in these morning talks, I try and just focus on your practice of meditation with very little theory, but a lot of practical advice. And advice which can relate to your experiences of trying to meditate. And you know that the best way of meditating is just to have this natural way of studying the mind, of letting go of all the controlling and all the doing, and just watching the mind become still. However, for some people that's very difficult for them to do, to let go. And that is by far the best way, is just to put the cup down and just watch your mind become still. And it's a wonderful way to meditate too. And I say that because it's a wonder that you actually do nothing at all and you sit there and watch, and the sloth and torpor disappears, the restlessness settles, and you see the present moment and silence, and it's so easy, and the breath comes up and then it gets very still, disappears, and these beautiful lights come up, and you just don't do anything, you just sit there. And that's the best way to meditate. It's inspiring, it's encouraging, and it teaches you so much about the nature of suffering, that you are suffering. You are the one who causes all this suffering, because you always get involved and try and make things happen. And if you really do let go and do absolutely nothing, how easy it is to be still, to be free, and to have incredible joy. You're actually discovering one of the greatest insights of life. The path to happiness comes when you just let go. Or, as it was said in the Visuddhimagga, this is the meditation manual of Theravada Buddhism. The path is, the path is, but no traveller on it is seen. Nibbana is, but not the person who enters it. And that's a very wonderful saying. Some people think it must come from Zen, from some Zen teacher, but that comes from a Theravada monk. The path is, but no traveller on it is seen. That means that if you're travelling the path, if you're driving and controlling the vehicle, if there's a traveller there, there's no path anymore, it doesn't work. But when you disappear, when there's no traveller, when you're not doing anything, then the path becomes a wide superhighway. You can't miss it. And so a lot of the times, we learn how to disappear. And if we disappear and stop controlling things, then meditation just happens. The path is, but no traveller on it is seen. But it's so hard for you to disappear. Because whatever you look at, whatever you hear, you tend to get involved in, and you start sort of existing again. So there are other little techniques and tricks just to get you closer to this letting go, and especially with meditation. So a lot of you have complained and said, well, when I'm doing present moment awareness, I've got nothing to watch, and then my mind wanders off all over the place, or silence is even worse. I'm absolutely quiet and I don't know what to do. And sometimes I try and watch the breath and other things come in. And I'm not supposed to control the breath. But then if I don't control the breath, it doesn't stay and something else comes in. So there's some help I can give you, which is playing around with your value system. Because what you will find in meditation is what you value most of all is what the mind sticks to. So when you start meditating, if you value sleepiness more than being awake, then your mind will go off into sloth and torpor. But if you really appreciate being awake, then you won't get dull. And what do I mean by appreciating being awake? It means finding value, finding fun, finding enjoyment in it. I don't know what time you go to bed usually, but last night those people over the road were out there till, 12:15 when they turned off their music, and they were probably up there 12:30, 1 o'clock, and I'm sure they never felt sleepy. Why was it? Because they valued, enjoyed what they were doing. And I remember as a monk, I was a young monk, when it got to about 10 o'clock I was always sleepy. And sometimes when we were staying up all night, I felt very dull. And then I thought to myself, hang on, this is really strange, because maybe only 12 months before, when I was a layman, I too went to all-night parties. When I went to an all-night party or an all-night music concert, I never felt sleepy. When I went to an all-night meditation, I was really sleepy. What's the difference between all-night meditation and all-night party? It's obvious what the difference is. I enjoyed the party. I found it valuable. It was fun and interesting. That's why I could stay awake. And meditation, it was boring. It wasn't interesting. That's why I got sleepy, because I didn't value the meditation. However, that sometimes in some monasteries they make sure that you value wakefulness much more than sleepiness. For example, there used to be, before the communists took over Laos, there used to be a very famous forest monastery in Laos. And there they had monks who had great meditation, because this is how they were trained. The teacher, the master, would take the new monks and take them on a walk through the jungle, up and down mountains, through dense parts of the jungle, all day. Now you know how tiring that is in a hot, humid jungle, climbing up and down mountains until late in the afternoon. The master always managed to bring them to a clearing, not far from the monastery, where there was these huge jungle trees. They were so tall. And beforehand, the monks had built little platforms high on one of the branches. And those platforms were just only a little bit bigger than your cushions, maybe just about the size of that mat you are sitting on, with no railings on it, just a flat piece of wood. And there was a bamboo ladder going up. And the master told one of the monks to go up that ladder to that platform, another to another platform. So every monk had to go to his own platform. And once the monk was sitting up there, the master took the ladder away and said, "I'll be back tomorrow." And there they were, tired, no wash, no water, up there high in the top of the trees in a small platform, and just if they fell off, it was certain death. If they survived and just broke a few legs, then the tigers would eat them. So either way, you could not afford to fall off, which means no one got sloth and torpor. No matter how tired you were, you had to stay awake. And so many of those monks got really good meditation. At least the ones who survived said that. The ones who fell off we don't know about because they couldn't tell. But if you really have to, you can. And that's one of the meanings of the talk I'm giving this morning. If you really have to, it's amazing that you can. When you don't have to, well, it doesn't matter. There's always this afternoon. There's always tomorrow. Ajahn Brahm comes to Penang every year, so I can wait till next year. It's not really a matter. So when it's not really important, you really don't put that value into being awake. But if you have something like a cancer, and you know you're going to die, the doctors said the prognosis is not very good, so you think, oh my goodness, I better learn how to meditate, because this for me is life and death. And I'm telling each one of you, has got a terminal disease. It's called life. You're all going to die. You're going to die. You're going to die. And it can happen any time. Sometimes I remember my maths and do some statistics. You look at the number of people in the room. I don't know how many people here, maybe about 60, 70 people. That means by this time next year, just working on averages, 2 of you will be dead. By this time next year, 2 will not make it. Which 2 is it? And don't just look at the old people. It could be you as well. That's true. I mean, people die every year. So by this time next year, 2 of you won't be here. Which one is there? And I'm not going to look at anybody because otherwise people, Ajahn Brahm looked at me. Oh my goodness. What we mean there is, if you really value wakefulness, if it's important for you, it's so easy to keep awake. So instead of trying to fight sleepiness, instead we value wakefulness. And there's a lot of difference there. Fighting sleepiness makes us tense. Valuing wakefulness means we're bright without having that tension and tightness in our mind. So if you are really sleepy and you've been sleeping enough already, just start thinking to yourself, look, I'm wasting so much time that, I can sleep as long as I like when I'm in my coffin. But now I'm a human being, I've got this precious human existence. We're on a retreat. You've got a good teacher, you've got great facilities. How often does it come you have the opportunity to learn very good meditation in such a good situation? Wow, I don't know how many years I've got left. I better really make use of this time as much as we possibly can. And if you think like that, you're valuing wakefulness. And it's the same when you start doing the other parts of meditation, like being in the present moment. Why is it that people go thinking of the past and what happened yesterday or last week? Why is it that people go planning their future? I've already told you that now is the time your future is being made. And the absolute best thing you can do for your future is being here right now. Being right in the cold face of your future, as they say. The place where your future is being made, constructed, right in this very moment. So if you think like that, and if you are concerned about your future, if you really are concerned about your future, then now is the most valuable time as far as your future is concerned. Fantasizing, dreaming of finding the beautiful guy, and then winning the lottery, and living in a lovely condo, and being able to travel wherever you want, whatever your fantasies are in life. No, they're not valuable. The present moment is the most valuable. So if you take away the value from all these other distracting things and convince yourself that now is the most important time by far, then your mind won't wander away. The only reason why your mind does wander to the past or to the future or to fantasies is because you think the past or the future or the fantasies are more important to you. That's why you wander off. It's important that I figure this out. It's really important that I plan what I'm going to do later on. And this particular fantasy, it's really interesting, it's important to me. Therefore, that's where the mind goes. But if you can convince yourself that the present moment is more important, that's where you'll stay. So, instead of using willpower to keep the mind in the moment, we use wisdom power. Basically, it requires a marketing campaign by you. I've done my part of the marketing campaign this morning. by convincing you that now is so important. The future, the past, fantasies, they're not important. Now is really important. You've only got a few years to live. The present moment is where you'll find truth, peace, enlightenment. So it's really important you're right here, right now. I've done my part, now you have to convince yourself that now is by far the most important time. So stay in this present moment. Stay right now. And after a while, it's easy to stay in the moment. Why? It's because you do recognize this is the only place worth being when you're doing a meditation retreat. All the rest is rubbish places. So when you value the present moment, your mind will stay there. You don't have to fix it there. The mind says, this is where I find the most value, this is where I'll be. That's how it remains in the moment. And as for thought, what is more important? Silence or thinking? The only reasons why thinking comes into your mind and remains is because you have the idea that thinking is important and valuable. How long have you been thinking? And how wise have you become through thinking? People who think a lot are the really big stupid ones. People who are silent are the wise ones. Unfortunately, when you were at school, you probably had great potential to be wise. And one day your teacher said, "What do you think of this? A problem on the board." And you told your teacher, "Nothing." And you got punished for that. So you were forced to think. If I was your teacher and I said, "What do you think about this mathematical problem on the board?" And you said, "Nothing." And I say, "Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu." There's a potential meditator there. Someone who doesn't think. But unfortunately, that was probably beaten or shouted out of you when you were at school. Oh, what those teachers did was terrible to you. But at school, you are taught how to think. And you value thinking. And you use that thinking in your career. It works to a certain extent. If you could also value silence and know the right time for silence, your career would improve by leaps and bounds. So would your family life, and so would your health and your enlightenment. For those of you who have been married or are married, you know that when people aren't listening to you, it creates huge tension in a relationship. And why aren't they listening to you? Because they don't know how to be silent. You're talking to them and they are thinking. Sometimes that happens with me when I'm giving a talk. I'm giving a talk and other people are thinking. How can you listen when you're thinking inside? Fortunately, obviously from my previous lives, even when I was at school, especially at university, I could actually listen without thinking. So when the teacher said things, it actually all went into my brain and stuck there. So I used to have this really good memory. Sometimes when it came to the end of year examinations, this was especially at school, not only did I know the answer to the question, but I could remember the lesson when the teacher told me that. Now I haven't got a photographic memory. All I had was a very calm and quiet mind. Which means when the teacher was speaking, I was silent, I was empty. So there was nothing preventing all that information from getting in and being absorbed into the brain. But now I know if I'm thinking when somebody else is speaking, there's like a barrier there. All the information they're giving me stops at that barrier, my thinking mind. Now I know that for personal experience. And I also know that that's one of the reasons why relationships don't work. Because people just don't know how to listen to each other. They all know how to talk because you've been taught how to think. But few people know how to listen, because you need silence to be able to listen. So there are times when we value silence over everything else. Silence is golden, which means it is valuable. And the silence in meditation is more than gold. It's like sacred. It's to be respected. It's to be revered as you would revere a Buddha statue. So you should never desecrate silence when she comes into your mind. And that silence, when you get to know her, is so valuable, is so pure and so wonderful, that after a while we look at all this thinking and it's got such a low value that we're not interested in it anymore. When we meet silence, it has a high value. So the mind instinctively goes and stays with the silence. How the Buddha described it, and this is in one of the Buddha's texts. He said, imagine a young man or a young woman going out to a party, made up, dressed in their best clothes, and they find, they don't know how this happened, that someone put a necklace of dead dog carcasses around their neck. And they would be disgusted and upset. Look, I've just had a great shower, had a good hairdo, put makeup on, put my best clothes on. I'm going out to a party and someone's put this necklace of dead dogs around my neck. You wouldn't be proud of that. You'd try and take it off as soon as possible. And in this simile, the Buddha said, that's like putting these necklaces of thoughts around your beautiful, pure mind. If you'd only realize what you're doing, all these thoughts which come and go, you think, yuck, that's disgusting. Thinking about this and thinking about that, because it does desecrate and despoil the beautiful silence. So, that was the silence. Value that. Make that so important in meditation that when it comes, when the thought is coming, no, I'm not interested. A good simile is, I'm not sure if some of your friends like watching the soccer or watching a sport or whatever, but very often people tell me when their husband is watching the soccer and there's a telephone call, they can't hear that telephone. They're just watching the soccer. They can't hear it. Dring, 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 dring. And the wife comes out to them and says, darling, someone's on the phone. They can't even hear their wife because they're watching what's going on. You know why that is? Because the soccer match on TV is more important than the sound of the telephone or the sound of their wife. That's why they literally don't hear it. Whatever is the most important is what fills up your mind. So the only reason why thoughts come into your mind is because you view them as important. You value them. You have the illusion that they're going to lead to some wisdom or some solution to your problems or business. And you should know by now they don't. So for the next few days of this retreat, do a marketing campaign on silence. Silence is valuable. This is where wisdom comes from. This is where peace comes from. This is where freedom is. All religions value that silence. It's holy, more holy than holy water, more precious than relics. This is the silence of the mind. So when it comes, give it all the value you can. And thoughts, they're rubbish. Another dead dog carcass. The silence is what I want. So when you value the silence, then it stays. You don't have to hold the mind on the silence. Just got to convince it it's the most valuable thing in the whole world right now. And that's how present moment of silence works, by valuing it. Now, in that silence, you may have like the sounds of the dog, you may have an itch on your nose, you may have an ache in your leg, but you've also got the feeling of the breath coming in and going out. And sometimes you'll go to that feeling of the breath. Either it will come naturally to you, or you'll decide, okay, now's the time to watch the breath. That's fine. You can make a choice at this stage and say, I'm going to watch the breath from now on. And if you do watch the breath, I haven't said this yet, but those of you who've heard me teach before have heard me say it many times. When you're watching the breath, you watch the natural breath. You don't deliberately breathe in long or deliberately breathe in short and make it unnatural. Keep it natural. And you don't watch the tip of the nose or the belly. You just watch the breath. If the breath happens to be located at the tip of the nose, fine. If it happens to be located at the belly, fine. But you watch the breath wherever the breath happens to be. When I teach new meditators how to watch the breath, all I do to them, I don't say watch the tip of your nose. That's a silly teaching. I tell them, just close your eyes and breathe in and out 3 times. Count 3 breaths. At the end of the 3rd breath, open your eyes, please. And that's such an easy exercise for people to do. They wonder what this is all about. And then I tell them, once they've opened their eyes, how did you know that the breath was going in and going out just now? What sensation told you that you were breathing in? What sensation told you were breathing out? So you knew in, out, in, out, in, out 3 times. And they look at me and they can't really describe it. I say, you don't have to describe it. That's what you look at in breath meditation. Whatever that feeling is, which tells you you're breathing in or breathing out. However, sometimes people, they always tend to have this idea you have to watch the tip of the nose. And if you watch the tip of the nose, and rather than watching the breath, you are likely to get what people in Malaysia call samadhi headache, which is where you get a tension across the top of your forehead. And the reason you get that tension, I always have to take my glasses off when I do this exercise. Now, most people meditate with their eyes closed. If when you're watching the tip of the nose, if I could peel your eyelids up, this is what you'd be doing. Because when you look at the tip of the nose with your mindfulness, it's natural, your eyes go down there as well. So when people are watching the breath, they don't realize, because their eyelids are closed, they're going cross-eyed. Now, if you can imagine doing that for 10 minutes, it will give anybody a headache. And that actually is one of the physical reasons why people get samadhi headache. Because we're focusing on here, they're also looking at there with their eyes, and they're getting cross-eyed. So please, don't do that. So instead, you just feel the breath. Now, wherever you feel the breath, it could be anywhere, who cares? Because all the Buddha said, to know the breath going in, know the breath going out. Now, anyone could do that for 3 breaths. Even people never meditated before in their whole lives. Restless CEOs, little kids at school, they can all watch the breath for 3 breaths. So why can't you watch it for 3,000 breaths? Another reason why, because after a few breaths, you get bored. What is boredom anyway? It means you see no value in what you're doing. You feel it's just a breath. What's the point? There's no value there. Now, those of you who are knowledgeable about Buddhism know that the breath was the vehicle which the Buddha himself used to become enlightened. You know it's the most popular form of meditation throughout the last 25 centuries, any place in the world. Breath meditation has led people into deep states of peace, bliss and enlightenment more than any other method of meditation. That's why it's valuable. If you really are keen to develop your meditation, if you really want to meditate, if you really want to have some peace and profound experiences in Buddhism, if you really want to practice this path and realize its fruits, this is the most amazing way, meditation on the breath. So when I see the breath coming up, this is almost like the Holy of Holies for me. This is the path of a Buddha. These are his footsteps, and I'm following in them. And I thought, wow, this really is important. This is precious. This is valuable. So when I see the breath, it's not just a silly old breath anymore, but this is the path into enlightenment. I'm following. So I give this incredible value to the breath. Because I give incredible value to the breath, I know this is leading, because I've been meditating a long time, I know where this breath leads to. I've had too much experience of it to know otherwise. So wow, here we go. It's like getting into a Rolls-Royce limousine. I know it's going to a really wonderful destination. So when I see a Rolls-Royce limo coming, and someone else says, would you like to ride in an old Proton to the airport, or a Rolls-Royce limo? And I look at the old Proton, clunky and uncomfortable, and the limo. I'll take the limo, please. Would you take the limo or the Proton car? So there you've got the beautiful limo, the breath. And all these other stupid thoughts and ideas come up. No, that's the old Proton car, the clunky old car. I'm not going to get in that one again. I'm going to go in this beautiful breath, this beautiful smooth riding limousine, which takes you all the way to the nimittas and then into the jhanas. Wow, yeah, this is for me. If you value the breath, then it stays. If you don't give it value, then you wander off. So, when you're watching the breath, make it important. If you stay with the breath long enough, it's going to take you to deep meditation. It's important, it's valuable. And I told you, I think yesterday, in those jungle monasteries when the mosquitoes were biting me, I just had one of two choices. And those two choices were to watch the breath and be free of the mosquito bites, or just to be aware of the mosquito bites. That's the only two choices which I had. And because watching the mosquito bites was so much torture, I had to watch the breath. It was really valuable. And that's why I could develop breath meditation, because of all the mosquito bites. That was my choice. If you weren't watching the breath, you'd find these mosquito bites. And that was just intolerable. So you had to watch the breath. And that's why I learned how to really watch the breath without missing anything. Why? Because it was valuable to me. So, if you put value into the breathing and just into the awareness of the breath, and that's really, 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 really important for you, it stays. And when it stays, basically, this is really as far as I need to go. When it stays and you're with the breath for a long period of time, it develops its natural interest. Like people who haven't heard about this meditation before said, how on earth can you just be watching the breath without getting bored out of your skull? You monks need to get a life. There's many more important things to do and interesting things than watch your breath go in and breath go out for a couple of hours. And these guys don't know what they're talking about. I've been to many places. I've done many things in my life. I've done many interesting stuff. But nothing is as interesting and as enjoyable as just meditating, especially meditating on your breath. You want to watch a movie? Or you want to watch your breath? Movie, breath, no contest. I'm watching my breath. Do you want to listen to some music? Or watch your breath? I've listened to great music. But I'll listen to my breath as well, and it's no contest. I'm with my breath. If you really value these things, then the breath starts to open out to you. It's got a natural beauty. It's very subtle, very wonderful. So after a while, you get to that stage. It happens naturally. If you value the breath and stay with it long enough, naturally it gets to the stage of the delightful breath. You're watching the breath go in and breath go out, and it's delicious, it's delightful, it's so satisfying, it's just so peaceful, it's so lovely. And you wonder, why on earth didn't I do this before? You have the most wonderful experiences of your life, just being with the breath going in and going out. And that's the time when people on meditation retreats, that's when they start to sit for hours. And they can't sit that long because their legs ache, their back aches. But I'll tell you, if you get into that state of meditation and deeper, you have no aches. You can't be aware of your body at the time, but even afterwards, your body is nice and free. Because at that time, when you're with the delightful breath, it's so delightful, it's got its natural value. You're not interested in the body. The body, the aches, the itches, they've got no value anymore compared to the beautiful breath. So that's what you stay with, so you can't feel the body. And what happens when you can't feel the body? You're just with the breathing. You let the body go. You don't interfere with it anymore. And that is the place that healing happens. One of the reasons why people don't use their natural healing powers is because you get involved too much. I gave the simile, it's like you have a cut on your finger. So you put a Band-Aid on. Now if you left that Band-Aid on, you've washed the wound, you put the Band-Aid on, if you left it on there, it would heal. Well, you know what people do? They put the Band-Aid on. And after 1 minute, I wonder how it's going. They take it off, oh, it's okay, put it back on again. Another minute, oh, maybe I should put some ointment on. So take it on, off, put some ointment on, cover it up again. Another minute, maybe the wrong ointment. So take the old ointment off, put some new ointment, cover it up again. Another minute, how's it going? Take it off again. Your wound will never heal if you keep interfering with it. Wounds heal when you cover them, isolate them, and leave the body's natural immune and repair system to do its work. That's all you need to do. Same with your body's healing power. Just to leave it alone and stop interfering and worrying, and then it heals itself. But because we've got an ache, we can't leave it alone. How's it going? Should I move this way, move that way, scratch it? Can I put a cushion on this way, put a cushion on that way? You interfere with your body so much, it never gets a chance to heal. But when you're meditating, you totally disappear. Or rather, the body disappears, you're just watching the breath, that's so valuable. And the rest of the body, you can't feel it. And that's when healing happens. There have been many amazing cases of people who, they do this meditation and they just heal. Did I tell I think I told a story at Singapore. Was it here about the man with the sinus cancer? I was here a few days ago. Okay, about the fellow who had the lung cancer? That's another guy. This fellow is an old English guy. He's a Cockney. He had lung cancer. He was smoking. He was in his 60s, smoking all his life. And got bad cancer of his lungs. And he went to his oncologist in Perth. And the oncologist gave him an X-ray. And an hour or two later, he went into the oncologist's rooms, and the oncologist showed him the X-rays. So the cancer was all over both lungs. He said one of the usual procedures was to do surgery, to take some of the lobes of the lungs which had cancers, to remove them. But he said, we can't do that, that's not an option, because there's no part of your lungs without the cancer. It's spread all over. And so George, his name was, said, well, what else can I do? Chemotherapy, radiation therapy, surgery's not a goer. And the doctor said, George, we can do chemotherapy or radiation therapy if you want, but it's only going to increase your life by 1 or 2 months. It's terminal. You've only got maybe 3 months to go. So, of course, that's always a shock for everybody when you realize you haven't got that long to go and there's nothing much you can do about it. So what George said, I'll come back next week I'll go home and talk it over with my wife and family, whether it's really worthwhile trying more radiation therapy or chemotherapy. So he went back home, talked it over with his wife, and they came to an agreement. They just let nature take its course. Now, what's the point of going through unpleasant radiation therapy or chemotherapy when it'll probably only increase your life by a couple of months? It's just not worth it. So he went there for his appointment, willing to tell the doctor, just leave it alone, let nature take its course, I'm just going to die. But the doctor insisted on doing another X-ray just to see how the disease had progressed in the 7 days. And so when he went into his oncologist's room the second time, the oncologist was looking at the new X-rays and shaking his head. And poor old George was even more afraid. He thought, oh my goodness, it's not 3 months, is it? It's less. Tell me, doctor, he said, be straight up with me. How many weeks have I got to live? I don't know if you heard that other joke about the man who went to the doctor and the doctor said, you've got terminal cancer. He said, how long have I got to live? And the doctor said, 9. And the man said, what do you mean 9? 9 months, 9 weeks, 9 days? And the doctor said, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. That's a joke. Anyway, back to this story, the real story. The doctor was shaking his head, and he said, look, George, I'm not shaking my head because it's got worse. I'm shaking my head because the bloody thing's gone away. Look at it, there's no cancer there. So in the place of 1 week, I think it could have been 2 weeks or 1 week, I keep getting that one wrong, but in a very short time, George had gone from having inoperable cancer throughout both lungs to having the lungs totally free of cancer. And so the doctor said, what the hell have you been doing, George? And George said, meditating. Well done, George, carry on. Anyway, in 1 or 2 weeks, this is not common. Most people, they can't do it that deeply. But in 1 or 2 weeks, his cancer had totally vanished just because of meditation. And now he's still alive today, and he teaches other people how to meditate so they can somehow cure their cancers. But amazing story, but true. And this can only happen when you get out of the way, when you let the body do the healing. So when you're watching the breath, it's that valuable for you because it allows healing to happen, as well as actually leading to enlightenment. So when the breath comes, this is important, it's valuable. All this other stuff in the body, all this sound outside, that's not my business. But the breath really is my business. And when you get to the beautiful breath, it's so delightful, you don't have to say anymore this is valuable. Because it obviously is. It's shining, it's beautiful. And I always call that particular stage in meditation the delightful breath, the pivot point or the tipping point. Because once you get to the delightful breath, the rest is just automatic. You're having a great time, you're enjoying yourself. So at last you realize, wow, this meditation is not boring, it's not hard to do, it's really fun, one of the most wonderful things I can do. And you're having a great time. And for many of you, that's the stage I want you to get to. Because after that, you're off by yourself. You don't need me anymore. You do need me sometimes, just to give you a few tips what happens next. But basically, you're off. Being able to sit there, having a great time. And of course, you stay with the breath. You can't do anything else because it's so delightful. It gets even more delightful and more subtle until it totally disappears in the most peaceful emptiness. And that's when the beautiful lights come. Whoa! And I'm not going to say that those are valuable because you can see they're incredibly valuable. You are getting to ecstasy states on the border with them when these nimittas really start to get strong. This is profound stuff, which is very deep. And for most people, when they get nimittas, they're having a wonderful time. Now this is really big stuff. So sometimes you might get afraid when the real big nimittas come because it's powerful. But this is the stuff of wise people, of all those sages of old who've gone off into mountains and monasteries, deep caves, and get into these great nimittas and beautiful lights which envelop them. You're coming to the cutting edge of enlightenment. Travel all this way, and now this is where all the Tripitaka, the Dhamma of the Buddha, lives. It's called Upachara Samadhi. Beautiful limiters. So you enjoy those things, and they are immense. And if you can just practice long enough with those nimittas, keep on going, it's only a matter of time when you fall in their center and getting one of the jhanas. These great unifications of mind. And I don't have to say how valuable these things are. If you get one jhana and you are a Christian, you'd be called a saint. They'd have a school named after you, because that's how powerful they are. When Christians managed to do those in the Middle Ages, sometimes by luck, they became so famous and powerful that they became known as saints. And you can do that this afternoon if you want. That's how powerful they are. So you're on the edge of something incredible, amazing, powerful, life-changing. Now this is Buddhism at its heart, the experience of these things. And to give you an understanding, in the texts, in the suttas, even the very first jhana, the lowest of the jhanas, when the Buddha was describing them, he used such terms as Sambodhi Sukha, which means enlightenment happiness, to describe the first jhana. This is not full enlightenment, but it was close enough that even the Buddha called that experience enlightenment bliss. So those of you who want to know what enlightenment is, not as a theory, not as an idea, but as an experience, you're getting right close, so close that even the Buddha called that experience enlightenment bliss. Wow. You are getting close, so close that the experience, the Buddha said, good enough, let's call it enlightenment bliss. And you're experiencing it. Wow, that's cool. Not only that, in some of those suttas, like the Maha Hatipadopama Sutta, the simile of the elephant's footprint, he said the first jhana is the first footprint of the Buddha. So if you want to not just see the Buddha's footprints, but stand in them, like we say these days, it's to stand in someone else's shoes. In the first jhana, you are literally experiencing what the Buddha felt. You are like a Buddha. Not quite, but getting some inkling into what a Buddha felt like. That's why these are huge, amazing, life-changing things. And that's just a little bit ahead of you, but certainly nowhere near out of your reach. You can get there. Now the reason I said this, I've just done a marketing campaign. Say, wow, yeah, I want this. So, value your breath. It's going to lead you there. Value it so much. Yeah, this is what I want. This is what I have to do. Keep with my breathing. All these other thoughts, well, I'm going to get enlightened. It's very close. I'm not concerned with these other thoughts. I've only got 3 or 4 days to go. Come on, go watch the breath. So when you value something, the mind will go there. If you don't value it, the mind will wander all over the place. So the meaning of this talk today, you can find this by insight. Whatever you find more valuable, that's what you'll go towards. Some of you, if you understand this talk, might get into such a deep meditation. 11:30, you know it's time for lunch. And you make a judgment. What's more valuable? Lunch or staying with this meditation? And some of you will say, I'm staying with meditation. It happens. People miss their lunch in these meditation retreats. And how can they do that when they know they're not going to eat until tomorrow? They do that because meditation is far more valuable. And that's natural, it happens. It's an experience. So now you can understand how valuing what really is worth valuing, means you don't have to force a mind, you don't have to fight. It focuses all by itself. Make peace, be kind, be gentle. Wait in the moment and rearrange your value system so you value what really is powerful and deep, not all this other rubbish stuff like thinking and fantasy. So that's the talk for this morning. So has anyone got any questions or comments about this today? Yeah. Okay, this is a good question. It is the two main obstacles before you go into deep meditation are excitement and fear. Now this is natural, and so don't think bad of yourself if you come across excitement or fear. It's actually a good sign. It means you're getting close. So what excitement is this really is big. And you know it's big, it's powerful, it's amazing. And it's just coming to you. Of course you get excited. Wow, at last, all these years, and this is what people have talked about. Woo! But of course, when you do that the first time, the whole thing disappears. You spoil everything. But I don't think really that you can get into these stages without going through a few times of destroying the meditation by excitement. It's just too natural. I can't see anybody being that wise and skillful. They don't get excited a few times before it happens. It's just too big. So what actually happens after a while, you've blown it a couple of times, the next time, you're prepared. Okay, here it comes. Excited last time and I blew it. Come on, calm down, be still, it's okay. And then you have enough composure to actually just to not be excited, and then you can go deeper and go into it. You just need to go past a certain point, and then it's past the point of no return. Any excitement or anything after that, it's just too late. You were going in, and that's it. And the same with fear as well. One extra thing which will help with fear is your understanding of Dhamma. Because that understanding, you've learnt a lot, you've heard a lot, and you heard from monks like me, hopefully you can trust. I don't lie to you, I don't deceive you. These are wonderful states, no danger whatsoever, have huge benefits, health benefits, happiness benefits, but most of all wisdom benefits, the huge insights which come up from these states. So when you hear from monks like me, there's nothing to fear. Nothing to fear. After a while, I brainwash you. Nothing to fear. So Ajahn Brahm says it's okay. Off you go. Go in. And the other thing is to realize that what you're afraid of, the reason why fear comes up, ego, because you're going to lose something. All fear is a sign of an attachment being challenged. Something which is very precious to you being taken away. and you don't own it anyway. It's just something you've had for a long period of time. It's the same fear which a prisoner has who's been in jail for 20 or 30 years, and now is the day of his release. He feels afraid because he's going outside of an area which he's got used to, which is known. His life is going to a new life, a new experience outside jail. He doesn't know whether he can cope with it. That's the same as the fear which we have as we're about to get out of jail and go into jhana. We're not used to it, we're afraid. Can we handle it? And of course, the prisoner can handle freedom. It's tough the first minute or two when he walks out beyond those prison gates, which he's known for 20, 30, 40 years. How old are you? Say you're, 30, 40, 20? How old are you? Yeah, you. 25. So you've been in prison for 25 years. And now's the day of your freedom. Are you ready to walk out of jail? No, because I'm used to this. That's what it's like getting into jhana. That's where the fear comes from. So with teaching yourself, it's okay. Other people have done this, it's wonderful, it's great, and this is what you read about in the books, what many people aspire towards, and now the door of the jail cell is open. Wide open. Walk out. So that's where the fear gets overcome. A lot of times through Dhamma knowledge. And it's really worthwhile doing. And isn't this what would be amazing if you get into a jhana on this retreat? Wow, that would really change your life. People have one human birth and get a jhana. That's what the whole human birth is worthwhile. Now there's your opportunity. Don't blow it with fear. Don't wreck it through excitement. Shh. And go in. So I think my marketing campaign was very good today because you're all paying rapt attention. So now, one last question and I'll let you do it. Yeah? In walking meditation, you can't go as far as jhanas. Because when you lose awareness of your body, then you're going to hit the wall. You're going to fall over. That's right, yeah. So if you're getting very deep and still when you're doing walking meditation, just find the nearest place to sit and sit down. So it can take that momentum deep into peace. Okay, so now we have our interview time. So those of you who want to come to interviews, but you know what's really more valuable. Is it more valuable to have an interview or more valuable to get into jhana? Now, if you need some interview time, please come down to have some interviews. But don't waste time. Very good.